I have made a very stupid decision today. Just this morning, as I was getting ready for college, I tripped and fell onto my camera, and I accidentally got it stuck to me. But, hey, I suppose while I'm here, I guess I could talk about a few found footage films. Considering that I'm stuck doing this stupid confessional parody. Like, this wasn't even my idea, this just happened. What the hell is wrong with me?
No matter what you thought of it when it first came out, you could not deny how much of a massive deal the Blair Witch Project was. Released in 1999 about 3 student filmmakers getting lost in the woods and getting punked out by an unseen demonic force, this movie was so unlike anything that came before it, with some exceptions, that it spawned an ARG weeks before the film came out, several fan theories on the film's unexplained events, so many references and parodies that can make your head spin 66 times before getting sent to quiet time in the corner, with Mike, a sequel the following year which was mostly a mockumentary on the craze behind the movie that was so filled with plot holes that even the film's title never comes into play, and a 2016 remake with decent enough scares but removed all the ambiguity that made the original special. Like, you get to see what the witch looks like in this version. No.
So yeah, it's no question that we're going to be taking a look at a few found footage films today, but hopefully I can do it in a way where it doesn't look like I'm sniffing you the whole time. What the hell have you been doing last night?
Thus, with that movie's success came the rise of the found footage movie genre. And to be honest, I can never forgive it for it. Now, don't get me wrong, I adore the Blair Witch Project. There is a pretty good reason as to why I call it the real deal found footage movie. Always replicated, but never duplicated. But like with every other money-making genre, they oversaturated to the point where doing a film entirely in the Saving Private Ryan shaky cam isn't seen as unique anymore and more so a desperate attempt to try and hop on an already doomed bandwagon. I am looking at you in particular, The Gallows, Grave Encounters, The Pyramid, The Last Exorcism. Actually, I kind of like The Last Exorcism. I'm just being mean at this point. Now, I'm not looking for any bad films here because... Like, come on, I've been watching too many bad films as of late. I deserve a break from them. I want to instead focus on the ones that I personally think are way too good to be buried behind the vomit-inducing equivalent to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. See what I did there? So we're not going to be talking about the no-brainer picks when it comes to good found footage movies like Wreck, Paranormal Activity, Host, or As Above, So Below. The Visit Unfriended might count in this case too, but science hasn't really come back on that one, and it's kind of debatable if they could be considered good movies to begin with. Unfriended especially because of it, well, being unfriended. And I don't even have to stick to the whole tried and true, I have to film everything type of plot either. Let's have fun with this, come on. So let's start with our first film, which I'm sure will be oodles of fun. Man Bites Dog, or C'est arrivé près de chez voi, damn, that was a much cleaner take than I was expecting, is a beyond darkly comedic mockumentary following the escapades of longtime serial killer Ben, as he is interviewed by a film crew for, as Wikipedia likes to call it, a fly-on-the-wall documentary, as he talks about his family, friends, hobbies, and killing people in the most graphic and disgusting details that he could possibly describe. Like, seriously, these deaths are brutal. Maybe not Terrifier 2 levels of masochistic, but the violence on display here did give the movie the dreaded NC-17 rating, so yeah, this movie could get pretty disgusting at the best of times.
Prends le crime de la guerre, par exemple. Hein? Le crime des toilettes. De quoi on a parlé dans les journaux? De qui? Allez. Allez, de qui on a parlé dans les journaux? Du dentiste. Du mécanicien dentiste. Mais Madame Pipi, on n'en a pas tiré une ligne. Pas une ligne, mon vieux, rien.
I have no qualms in saying that the violent rampages are easily the most memorable highlight of the film. I mean, how can you forget scenes like this when they're shot so raw and brutalized? It's like if the documentary The Bridge was about a sentient bridge that killed people. Okay, that went nowhere. Either that or the film's main lead, Ben, played by Benoit Poirot. I hope I pronounced that right. I am not French. In a character study as brutal as this, Ben would be the last guy that you would consider as likable. Sure, he murders people, but he's also very funny and talks about killing people in a very passionate way. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like he's a veteran serial killer or something. It's almost fitting that a movie as nasty as this is from the producer Remy Beauvoir, whom I wasn't able to find that much information on, but from what I was able to gather in time for this video, he was fined along with 3 other people for throwing a cream pie in the face of Bill Gates, and on a less humorous note, sadly took his own life in 2006. Again, it's not much, but you could kind of tell that this guy was a bit of a rebel, and this film in particular captures it in spades. He didn't want to make a traditional movie about a serial killer, he wanted to go that extra mile with this mockumentary style of filmmaking that elevates realism in a way that wasn't imaginable back in the 90s, especially for France. This was completely new in that era. But it's not just all that that makes this one of my favorite films of all time. It's also really damn funny.
Oui, t'es désolé. Ah bah tiens, pour ta mauvaise oreille. Prends un bonbon.
I mean, it's very dark, of course, but the delivery of everything is just so dry, and every line of dialogue sounding very nonchalant even during the murder scenes. You could say they have a very sick sense of humor, but I can't help but to get a kick out of it. Bottom line, for a film that predates the Blair Witch Project by a couple of years, give or take, it's really good. But with how much it banks on realism to get a general shock out of you, especially with its sense of humor, I can definitely understand why most people wouldn't get into it. The old jumper stunk of weed. The movie begins with tits and a dick, so that's how you know that you're watching a VHS movie. I'm just joking with y'all. Unlike the original, this isn't what most of the film's going to be, thank God. But we do see a kid jerking off later on, so there goes that opportunity for me to give this movie a 10 out of 10. Honestly, none of that really matters, because for a sequel to a niche found footage horror movie, it's pretty good. Better than good. This movie's fantastic. This entire movie is such a love letter to the found footage subgenre, and they never hold back with what they can do with their limitations, with most of these segments being some of the best in the entire franchise. Phase 1 clinical trials is a nice juxtaposition of the first segment of VHS 1, but instead of being in a pair of glasses, it's in someone's eyeball, and also has this expert pacing that keeps you on your toes for both segments. But this one has no Lily in it, so automatic 0. Ride in the Park brings a completely new premise to the table of several hitchhikers turning into zombies and terrorizing a birthday party, which is already pretty funny. And we've seen zombies communicate with each other before, but seeing one of them snap out of their zombified trance, looking at the damage he's caused to everything, and then shooting himself out of guilt, that is beyond new for not just zombie media, but horror in general. And it came from this movie of all things. Safe Haven is a fan favorite and my personal best segment in the whole film, where our lead joins a cult and tries to get out before things go horribly wrong. Things go horribly wrong. And finally, Slumber Party Alien Abduction, despite the title giving away all the spoilers for free, take it, it's all I have, is massively scaled for the small budget that they were given and has the most improvised feel out of them all. Similar to how the Blair Witch Project had a very improvisational tone to it. Which is hilarious considering that one of the segments here is directed by Eduardo Sanchez, the co-director of the Blair Witch Project. Every step this film takes gets crazier and crazier as it goes on, and most moments can range from being creatively insane to downright terrifying. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say that this might be my favorite sequel to a movie ever made, but Britannia Hospital? Hello? And for those who are wondering why I haven't mentioned the wraparound segment Tape 49 yet, it's fine.
Today is gonna be epic!
I remember seeing Spree in a time where I desperately wanted to see some new horror films, and it might be without a doubt the scariest movie we've covered here so far. Because when I was scrolling down the cast on Letterboxd, the site almost tricked me into thinking that Doug Walker was in this. Also,
Frankie Grande. In a time where becoming the next influencer is bigger than ever, Spree, while having a lot of energy going for it and has a lot of pretty great performances throughout, acts like a cautionary tale of sorts. A tale of one guy named Kirk Kunkel, member of the Funkel family, who is so desperate on becoming famous online that he would follow every single current trend and go as far as to murder people who criticize him. Damn. This movie alone is why I always try to avoid using the word content as much as possible, because I don't want to put myself in the same ballpark as Steve the Narcissist over here. This is another example of a character that I really want to hate, like actively despise. But Joe Keery plays Kurt with so much passion and delightful yet spiteful anger that, unlike Ben from Man Bites Dog, I kinda do hate him by the halfway point. Kurt is a narcissist who shouldn't be admired or liked. This guy is clearly only obsessed with himself and never shies away from putting down people that are clearly more popular than him. Also, he has a disgusting haircut. Damn, he's ticking off all the boxes today. Besides the fact that this is clearly a character study of someone who has no regrets with being a murderous clout chaser, and the sad reality of both the live stream comments and the ending with a bunch of 4chan users citing Kurt as a hero a la Divine and Female Trouble, it's a very cleverly edited film too, splicing several different live streams from several different perspectives into this cacophony of madness, and even the inspired decision to intercut Kurt's death with an earlier scene of him celebrating 50k viewers by talking about how he got what he deserved. A perfect bit of irony considering what it's intercut with. Top that off with some really funny performances like Sashir Samada as Jesse, several actual social media stars, and David motherfucking Arquette of Scream fame, and you've got yourself an unforgettably surreal companion piece to our current reality that sadly gets more true with every passing day. Burn in hell, Kurt, and rest in peace to all his victims respectively.
If I could drive a spaceship.
Apollo 18. Yes, bring out your constellation maps to Cancer the Crab and thermal ray photos of a star that's set to go supernova any second now, because we're talking about space in this segment. Yeah, this was one pretty divisive film upon release, and still kind of is to this day. It's no surprise that most films that focus more on the realistic exploration side of space would always get the short end of the stick. Space Cowboys, Ad Astra, Moon, Lucy in the Sky. Hell, there's even a sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey that almost no one talks about, focusing on the investigation behind the abandoned Discovery spaceship. Even though every single one of us in the audience knew exactly what happened to everybody on board, yeah, it's a pretty pointless watch and I don't exactly recommend it. But back to Apollo 18's divisiveness, the most common complaint remedied against it is the fact that it's way too slow. Really? That's the biggest complaint. Alright, in everyone's defense, I do see where they're coming from. It's a very slow movie about the discovery of aliens that takes forever to get to the aliens part, and most of it is tonally uninteresting. But I feel like calling a movie like this boring because of it being slow is kind of hypocritical as a film buff, considering that one of the most beloved movies of the 20th century is 12 Angry Men. Pretty alright movie, but it's literally just several racist old people doing nothing but argue for 80 or so minutes. I'll just come out and say it, love Sidney Lumet's work, but I just think 12 Angry Men is overrated. Although I will say if I did have an issue with any of the film, it felt like it was cut down a little too much. Like, the Russian cosmonaut's death was cut entirely, leaving the method of his death entirely unknown, which, okay, that would be just fine if he just disappeared and we only got traces of what happened to him, similar to Josh in the Blair Witch Project, but knowing how gnarly his corpse looked when the others do find him, like, come on, you can't just leave a thing like that ambiguous. I want to see what happens. And there was even an alternate ending where the aliens gang up on one of the ships as the spaceship loses oxygen, which, I'll admit, would have been a much scarier ending than the one we got. Seriously, they just crash into each other and that's it. Honestly, the only reason I liked Apollo 18 as much as I did is the presentation. The entire movie was shot through old 70s camera lenses, which I think is IMDb Trivia's way of saying it was just shot on 16mm, and it works really well for the tone it's going for, making this feel like actual found footage. Not like found footage as in, oh, I found a camera in the middle of nowhere and this is just footage we got off the SD card. No, Like, this was hidden away for several years to cover up any form of conspiracies going around, and only now has it been unveiled to the public. It feels like that kind of found footage. Also, yes, haha, let's have a bit of a laugh here, feel free to get those jokes out your system, but all that aside, I wouldn't be surprised if someone was actually tricked into thinking that this was really shot in space. Like, sure, the effects blending doesn't always work, but just look at all this. This genuinely looks like it was filmed on the moon. I like this movie. I know that I've disagreed with the common consensus before, but this is actually really good. Probably enough to stand up there as one of the modern horror greats. Huh. I wonder what else this director's done. Alright, let's see here. Gonzalo Lopez Galago. Alright, so, American Star came out this year, starring Ian McShane. Wait a minute, you mean that Ian McShane? The friggin' Great Bobensky Ian McShane? Huh! Holy crap, it is! Friggin' Mr. Bobensky starred in a movie that was done by the same director as Apollo 18. Weird. And if it wasn't for the fact that everybody, and I mean everybody, wanted a piece of that found footage pie, this would have done really well in the late 2010s, especially with the major evolution of social media. Take, for example, Chumbawamba. Yeah, sure, you may only know these guys as the people who made the song about getting knocked down and getting back up again, but these guys didn't start off as people who made tump thumping. They were next-level political activists who hated Live Aid because they saw it as a sellout move, and the major label of EMI to the point where they made a song for a compilation album called Fuck EMI. But they did learn to have a lot of fun every once in a while. Like, sure, the political leanings are all still there in every single song, but they go in so many directions with it, like going entirely in a cappella, electronic, having surreal album covers, and even holding the longest album name. Not for long. And because of that, they lasted a lot longer than other punk rock bands from that era. Take, for example, The Clash ended up sitting out the last 5 years of Thatcher's ruling because they were all so far up their own asses with being non-conformities that they came out with The Monster Under My Bed at Night. And Rage Against the Machine stayed pretty consistent with their style, well, consistent to the point of being repetitive, so much that they ended up lasting only 4 albums, effectively sitting out the entire Bush administration. And putting that analogy into place, I'm not saying that there are no good modern found footage films. As a matter of fact, there's a lot more than you think. Pose came out during the worldwide house arrest, but was still an effective and comforting use of all that spare time. Infrared was also pretty funny, not just because it had Mark from The Room in it as our main lead, but also manages to keep pretty consistent with mocking how desperate paranormal investigation streamers are. I love Late Night with the Devil, it's so weird. And the VHS franchise is still going strong after all these years, with the most recent one, Beyond, coming out last month. Not to mention analog horror series like Local 58, Angel Hair, Vita Carnus, and the Monument Mythos, which managed to create these massive yet effective world-ending horror stories without even showing anything. As a matter of fact, here on the left, or right, depending on if the footage mirrors itself in post, here is my definitive list of my top 10 favorite found footage movies. Time can only tell when found footage will come back in style. Like, sure, we're not getting as many of these types of films as we did a decade ago, but that doesn't mean it's entirely extinct. I still have hope for it. And who knows, maybe one day, it'll have its time in the spotlight one last time. Alright, let's wrap this up. Son of